Let me take you back to a time when I was chasing someone who didn't want to be caught. Being caught. A time when every message left on read felt like a rejection letter from the universe. A time when I confused breadcrumbs with a banquet. I was chasing ghosts. And one ghost, in particular, I waited, I hoped. And they pulled away, disappeared, got cold when I got close. It was like loving a mirage. You see something beautiful in the distance, but the closer you get, the more it vanishes. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt addicted to the idea of someone who never fully showed up? Because that was me. And here's what I learned in the fire of that heartbreak. If you have to constantly prove your worth just to earn crumbs of attention, that's not love. That's not love. That's survival. That's your nervous system operating in fight or flight mode, trying to decode mixed signals and rationalize why someone you care about keeps pushing you away. When you're with an avoidant partner, you live in a constant state of tension. One day they're warm and present. The next, they're emotionally locked behind a wall you can't see. You find yourself performing emotional gymnastics just to get back to that brief moment when they seemed available. That it's exhausting, it's confusing, and it's incredibly addictive. You're not just in a relationship with a person, you're in a relationship with a pattern that keeps reopening your wounds under the disguise of a maybe. Maybe they'll change. Maybe if I do this, they'll open up. Maybe if I love harder, they'll stay. But all that a maybe's doing is bleeding you dry. Because deep down, many of us aren't just looking for love. We're looking for healing through love. We think that if someone who doesn't see our worth finally does, it will prove we were always lovable. But here's the reality. Love shouldn't feel like you're trying to win a prize. It shouldn't feel like waiting outside a locked room, hoping someone eventually opens the door. You shouldn't have to guess whether you matter. You shouldn't have to shrink yourself to become more acceptable. And yet, that's what I did. I kept telling myself, either just scared or they need time. I built excuses like scaffolding around their emotional walls. And every time they distanced themselves, I tried harder, texted more, explained myself, softened my tone, held space for their silence, softened my tone, held space for their silence. I was bleeding emotionally and calling it patience, but here's the hard truth I had to face. You cannot heal in a relationship that keeps reopening your wounds. You cannot find peace in a place that triggers your deepest anxieties. That's not love, it's emotional starvation. It's sitting at an empty table, hoping someone brings you food when they never even intended to cook. You deserve consistency. You deserve affection that doesn't come with a withdrawal notice. You deserve presence, not just proximity. Love should fill you, not keep you constantly wondering when it will disappear. At some point, I had to stop pointing the finger at them and start asking myself the harder question. Why was I so drawn to someone who couldn't give me what I needed? And that's when it hit me. I wasn't just chasing an avoidant ex. I was running from myself. I was using the chaos of the relationship to distract myself from the silence I didn't want to face. Because that silence held the truth. Because that silence held the truth. I didn't feel worthy unless I was earning someone's love. When you're constantly trying to unlock someone emotionally unavailable, it starts to feel like a mission. You think if you crack the code, you'll finally get the affection you've been craving. But underneath that is a deeper fear. What happens if I stop trying? Who am I without this chase, this cycle? This identity of the one who fixes and proves and waits? That's where I was stuck. I thought I wanted love, but really, I wanted validation dressed up as love. I wanted someone else to prove that I was enough, so I didn't have to do the hard work of believing it myself. And that's the trap. We think we're fighting for connection, but we're avoiding introspection. But we're avoiding introspection. It's easier to stay hooked on someone's potential than it is to ask, why do I feel most alive in emotional chaos? Every time they pulled away, I took it personally. I made it about my worth, but it wasn't. Their avoidance was their wound. My obsession with chasing them was mine. I realized I was more comfortable being anxious and overgiving than I was being alone with my own unmet needs. The relationship became a mirror I didn't want to look into. A reflection. Sometimes the unavailable partner is just the stage for your own internal battle. You're not really trying to reach them. You're trying to reach the part of you that believes love should be hard to earn. The part that thinks consistency is boring. So it feels boring. The part that confuses emotional unavailability with intensity. I had to stop asking why they couldn't love me and start asking why I kept choosing people who didn't. That's when everything started to change. Not outside me. Not inside me, but inside. I used to think the pain I felt after they left meant the connection was real. That the heartbreak was proof we had something special. Clung to that pain like it was sacred. I thought, if it hurt this much, it had to be love. But I was wrong. The pain wasn't a sign of depth. It was a symptom of depletion. It was what happens when you pour your energy into someone who gives you just enough to keep you hoping, but never enough to feel safe. They weren't showing up fully, but I weren't showing up fully. But I was. I was all in, heart open, energy invested, waiting for the day they'd finally match me. And when they didn't, when they disappeared or shut down again, it didn't just hurt, it felt like betrayal. But here's what I didn't realize. I wasn't being betrayed by them. You noise. I was betraying myself. Every time I ignored the red flags, every time I made excuses, every time I prioritized their comfort over my clarity, letting go felt impossible. It felt like giving up on something my soul had been fighting for. And that's the twisted part of it. When you love someone who keeps you on an emotional roller coaster, the highs feel euphoric and the lows feel like withdrawal. It mimics addiction. You don't just miss them, you crave them. The cycle becomes a loop that your nervous system can't tell apart from love. So when it ends, your body panics. You start remembering only the good parts, editing the memories like a highlight reel. You forget the cold silences, the unanswered texts, the nights you cried yourself to sleep, wondering what you did wrong. But the pain was never proof of love. Wondering what you did wrong. But the pain was never proof of love. It was proof of misalignment, of overextending, of being emotionally malnourished and calling it devotion. Letting go didn't feel empowering at first. It felt like failure, like mourning, A version of myself that believed this person would one day become who I needed them to be. But that version of me was built on hope, not reality. And that version had to break in order for the real me to emerge. The person who finally stopped waiting. The person who stopped begging for clarity. The person who realized that real love doesn't confuse you. It doesn't hurt this much. Much. It doesn't come with conditions. It stays. It chooses you without hesitation. And the moment I stopped romanticizing the pain, I started choosing peace. Looking back, I can say this with certainty. I wasn't just in a relationship. I was in a cycle of chasing, doubting, explaining, and shrinking. A cycle where I believed that if I just became the perfect version of myself, I would be worthy of consistent love. But love that demands you to prove yourself isn't love. It's performance. It's performance. And what I was performing wasn't connection. It was survival. I was trying to earn something that should have been freely given. Freely given. I was waiting for someone to stop being avoidant when I should have been asking why I was still staying. Sometimes the greatest heartbreak is not when they leave. It's when you finally realize they were never fully there to begin with. There's a particular ache that comes with loving someone emotionally unavailable. It's not loud, it's quiet. It's the sound of your needs being silenced. It's the ache of hoping today will be the day they finally let you in. But hope can become a trap when it's based on fantasy instead of reality. Of reality. I was addicted to the potential, to the illusion of what we could be, if only they healed, if only they changed, if only they stayed. But what I failed to realize in the middle of that chase is that you can't build a relationship on possibility. You can only build one on presence. And presence was the one thing they never gave me. Walking away wasn't some grand, empowered moment. It was slow. It was messy. It came in waves of clarity and relapse. I would delete their number and memorize it. I would block them and then fantasize about unblock them and then fantasize about unblocking. Healing didn't look like strength. It looked like sitting with every ugly truth I had buried beneath the maybe one day. But the longer I stayed in that space, the clearer it became. The love I wanted from them, I had to give to myself. Not because self-love is a trendy buzzword, but because no one can truly meet you if you keep abandoning yourself just to be chosen. There is a different kind of peace that comes when you finally stop begging for crumbs. When you finally when you stop romanticizing someone's emotional unavailability and start seeing it for what it is. Not a sign that you're hard to love, but a reflection of where they are in their own journey. And you don't have to sit in that waiting room. You can leave. You can leave. You can choose yourself not in a cliche way, but in a fierce, radical, unapologetic way. You can choose to break the pattern, to stop chasing ghosts, to stop settling for potential, to stop thinking pain equals love. Real love won't require you to suffer first. So if you're in that place, wondering whether you should stay, wondering if it will ever feel different, let this be your invitation to walk away, not because you gave up, but because you finally got it. You're not hard to love. You just gave your love to someone who wasn't ready to hold it. And now you get to walk towards someone who will. But most importantly, you walk back to yourself. And that's where the real story begins. Thank you for walking with me through this story. One that started with heartbreak, confusion, and self-abandonment, but ended with clarity, strength, and truth. To anyone who's ever chased a ghost, doubted their worth, or tried to fix what was never theirs to heal, I see you. I've been you, and I promise there is life after letting go. A better one, a freer one that begins the moment you choose yourself. Helpful. This wasn't just a story about an ex. It was a story about remembering who I am. And if my voice helped you remember a piece of who you are, then this was worth every word. Thank you for listening. Thank you for feeling. And until next time, thank you for feeling. And until next time, take your power with you. Goodbye for now. Speech sparkles.